Notice how in today's gospel reading, our Lord is watching or warning his disciples rather to beware of false prophets. And then he goes on to say, they come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. Very, very important admonition of our Lord, or a warning of our Lord. And it's, if you look at the New Testament, this theme of false prophets or false apostles comes up again and again. In other words, Satan wants to corrupt the faith, and often he will do it by means of false prophets, people within the Christian community, people within the church. So something to be aware of. Now, whenever we talk about analogies or parables of our Lord, you know, there's a comparison that is being made, a kind of simile, but sometimes there's things that are similar and things that are different. So notice he says about these false prophets, they come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. What exactly does he mean by that? By coming in sheep's clothing, he's saying they look nice, they look gentle, they look innocent, they look like they wouldn't harm anyone, they look like they're just trustworthy, but inwardly they're ravenous wolves. Now, is it really true that these false prophets are like wolves who want to devour you and kill you? The answer is no. So usually these false prophets, sometimes they believe what they are saying and they're promoting their false beliefs because they truly believe it. But it's Satan who's the ravenous wolf. By deceiving us, by leading us astray, he has greater access to us. He can lead us astray. We're not going to be as close to God. Therefore, we have less of God's protection for us also. So we need to take this to heart. So basically, there are some individuals who may be very good speakers. They may be very kind, very generous. They may appear to be very compassionate, but if they're not proclaiming the truth, they're leading you astray, and or could be leading you astray. So our Lord goes on, you will know them by their fruits. And here too, it's not a perfect analogy, especially when our Lord says a good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. I think it's true to say sometimes bad people do good things. I think it's also true to say that people who are genuinely good most of the time, sometimes they do bad things. So some of the fruits that we bear, it pertains to our actions, how we behave, how we interact with others. But this also refers to the church. And the church is holy. The church is good. Why is the church holy? Not because the individual members are holy. It's true the individual members, being in a state of grace, have a holiness to them because they have been transformed through the grace of Christ. But the church is holy because she's the source of all holiness. She's the source of the sacraments. That's why we say the church is holy. But as we know, there is corruption in the church, sometimes even false prophets within the church. And, you know, in the past, it's usually from the Catholic Church that people have fallen away. When it comes to false prophets in the Old Testament, and this is reiterated in the New Testament also, but in the book of Deuteronomy, I believe it's chapter 13, it mentions that if a prophet teaches you a different God or guides you to believe in a different God, you know it's clearly a false prophet. Or if the prophet prophesies some future event and it doesn't come to pass, that's another sign that this is a false prophet. And, you know, in Paul's letter to the great Galatians in the New Testament, you know, even if we or an angel from heaven were to preach to you a Christ different from the one that we taught you, let him be accursed. In other words, clearly a false prophet. But you see, this is exactly what has happened. All these different Christian denominations, or think of Jehovah's Witnesses, Latter-day Saints, they're preaching a different Christ. And they don't realize. So they've been led astray. And, you know, with a lot of these cults, the people appear very, very good. Jehovah's Witnesses, they dress very modestly. They're very polite. They don't swear. They pray regularly. They just seem so good. And you would think, well, that's good fruit. Not necessarily. So good fruit is the truth part of it is the truth, knowing the fullness of the truth, and believing the truth. Now, here's an interesting point when it comes to fruit. So we are called to bear good fruit, as I mentioned, by our actions. The church, in many ways, bears good fruit. And when we look at some of these other religions, even Jehovah's Witnesses, Latter-day Saints, many of them would consider them to be cults, they do some good. They bear some good fruit. That's true. It's very true. Even other non-Christian religions, there's some good in them. Even the Muslims practice charity. It's emphasized at certain times of the year. So there's some good in every religion. But when we consider the Catholic Church, it's only the Catholic Church. We could say, with an exception, the Orthodox Church also, and some of the Eastern Rite churches that belong to the Catholic Church. So only the Catholic Church and only the Orthodox produce great saints like Mother Teresa of Calcutta, or Saint Anthony of Padua, Saint Anthony of Egypt also, which the Orthodox accept. And, so in the Catholic Church, we have these great saints: Mother Teresa of Calcutta, Saint Therese of Lisieux, Padre Pio, Carlo Acutis, and we could just go on and on and on. The other churches, they don't even come close. The other religions, they don't even come close. Gandhi doesn't even come close. So this is one of the surest signs that the Catholic Church is the true church, because of the great saints she has in her church, and also the many miracles often through these great saints that occur in the Catholic Church. So this is the true fruit. We know we have the fullness of revelation in the Catholic Church. The ideal is we live that to the best of our abilities, so that we ourselves are bearing good fruit. Just a reminder, this Friday is the Solemnity of the Sacred Heart. We will have a living rosary on Friday at 6 p.m. It's organized by the Legion of Mary. Everyone is invited to participate, and it's in anticipation of the Feast of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, which takes place on Saturday. Please note also that I will be away this weekend, as well as Monday and Tuesday of next week. I am going on the CWL trip to the shrines in Quebec.